One of my favorite parts about the Star Wars universe is all of the beasts and creatures. Not just the aliens, but, the things that are less than human. Are aliens less than human? I don't know. Well, the coolest beast we all know is the Dewback, because it's basically a Star Wars dinosaur, and everyone knows I love dinosaurs. But the second best beast in Star Wars is obviously the Tauntaun. Because, well, it's like a giant snow lizard with horns. And I mean, come on, what kid doesn't love a giant snow lizard with horns? Collectors love it, kids love it, parents love it, even babies love it. I mean, heck, the Tauntaun is like a second home, right? Because you can live inside of it. I mean, any creature that you can basically live inside is, to a kid, like a playhouse and an action figure combined. So, yeah, you're styling. So the Tauntauns in the movie were realized in a few different ways. The close-up shots were all done with actual on-set, not CGI, excuse me, animatronic models, or really more puppets that would be controlled from off stage. But the running version of the Tauntaun was done with stop motion, which is very similar to the technology of like 1950s dinosaur movies. And in fact, this technology, which was pioneered by Ray Harryhausen, modeled after the stop motion of King Kong that inspired him as a young boy, well, it basically defined special effects until Star Wars redefined special effects. In fact, the special effects of the 77 film are kind of what caused Ray to retire. His last film, Clash of the Titans, which came out in the early 80s, was seen as dated in a post Star Wars world, especially the scenes with Calibus, the swamp creature, if you will. His stop motion claymation movements were seen as very jarring, which is why it's really ironic that in Empire Strikes Back, this same technology was used to move the Tauntauns. Anyway, that's an interesting side note, but let's talk about the toy we're here to talk about. And this two-time silver medal winning toy, of course, is the Power of the Force 2 Luke Skywalker with Tauntaun in the Beast assortment. So, yep, we're back to the Beast assortment, which, as a fan of Star Wars Beast, was one of my favorite assortments that came out. And while this one didn't contain a Dewback, it did contain a Tauntaun. And anytime that we're getting more Beasts and more Riders, I'm pretty much okay with that. And Power of the Force 2 was a golden age of this coming out. So, package contained one hero Luke and one riding on Tauntaun. Riding on Tauntaun? One Tauntaun to ride on. And yeah, comes with everything you see here, including removable reins and articulated arms and legs and horn. Well, the horn wasn't articulated, but the figure could sit on it thanks to brand new articulated knee joints. Now, I grew up in Cheshire, Connecticut, which is located here as far as the world is concerned. And every year, nature would give the greatest play set ever to a young child who had seen The Empire Strikes Back, and that's basically Hoth on your doorstep. Oh man, when it would snow, when I would wake up and basically have Hoth outside, I would bring all my toys outside and, my Tauntauns and my AT-ATs, or AT-ATs as we called them in the day. And that was just the greatest play ever, having an entire world just land on your doorstep. And boy, those figures that came out in the 80s for Hoth were some of the best ones. I mean, it was kind of like right in the middle of the Kenner Star Wars collection since Empire was the middle film, right? And Tauntauns were no creature shy, shall we say. You got a Tauntaun, it came in a box with reins, and while it wasn't exactly a dewback, it did work in the same way, in the sense that it had a trap door in its body where the figure would actually go inside the Tauntaun, sort of how Luke goes inside the Tauntaun, but in the other direction. So this way, figures that didn't have articulated knees could actually ride the Tauntaun by just having their legs hidden inside of it, which, yes, is both creepy and fun. But hey, it's a Tauntaun, and it worked, and it was the 1980s. So yes, you could take your action figure, and you would basically insert it through the trapdoor, the legs would disappear, and he would be, or she, to ride your beast of burden. Now, of course, what trapdoor would be complete without another trapdoor? And the Tauntaun was upgraded with a split belly feature, which was the greatest action feature ever. Yes, if you had the Tauntaun with split belly and you could put Luke Skywalker inside of it, or Yoda, who would fit entirely inside, you were styling. This was the coolest play. It was awesome. And to say I was a little disappointed that the new Tauntaun didn't feature this, eventually they did give the Tauntaun a split belly in, well, they re-released it years later, but For this original version, not so much. Now, the Tauntaun kind of goes hand in hand with the Wampa, or as it's always called, the Hoth Wampa. Why is it not the Hoth Tauntaun, but it's the Hoth Wampa? Is it like the Tatooine Dewback or Tatooine Sarlacc? Either way, the Wampa and the Tauntaun tend to be paired, prey and predator, you know, playmates in the winter. And they did get to a Wampa with Luke Skywalker figure, which had one of the coolest packouts of any Power of the Force 2, but we'll get to that soon. The other interesting thing that I really learned when I had this Tauntaun figure was that there are two Tauntauns. Well, I mean, we know there's two Tauntauns. Luke has one, Han has one, there's also a few in Echo Base. But if you'll notice, Luke's Tauntaun has a broken horn, which I never noticed as a kid until I owned this action figure and Tauntaun. It was the first time I learned that Luke's Tauntaun had a chipped horn, and it actually gave them two different looks, if you will. So you could put Han and Luke's Tauntaun next to each other when Han's eventually came out, and we will get to that in this series, obviously, since we're going in figure release order. All right, so chipped horn aside, in the package was also a new-ish Luke Skywalker and Hoth gear, who was a sort of a retool of the previous single-carded Hoth Luke. This time, however, his knees had a articulated joint, allowing him to sit on the Tauntaun without said trapdoor. We would get later Hoth Lukes throughout the line, and some were better than others, but at least this version allowed Luke to straddle the Tauntaun, and we no longer had to insert his legs into the back to create the illusion that he was riding it. Hey, progress! And speaking of which, this was not the only Tauntaun we were going to get in the modern line. In fact, Tauntauns would continue to be made and improved on throughout the line all the way up to the Vintage series. So, yes, we got a later re-release of this exact one in a multi-pack with that split belly action, complete with guts from the Ackley toy. And we would eventually get Vintage Collection versions with all new sculpts from the ground up that are kind of a definitive Tauntaun toy. I mean, this is an amazing toy, and I can't wait till we get the video reviewing this one because, man, you just put this thing on your desk, put a figure on top, and it just looks like the movie come alive. Tauntauns just, I don't know, they're just so Star Wars. They're so awesome. And I always appreciate a good Tauntaun toy. And I'm glad that this was not a one and done character or creature, if you will, because Tauntauns deserve some love and a lot of toy love. And I'm glad that they got not only re-released but updated throughout the line until we really perfected the Tauntaunness of the line. But for now, for Power of the Force 2, hey, complete with yellow snow deco on the legs. I don't want to know what that is. Hey, we got Luke. He rode on the back, and a new generation of kids could now fall in love with Tauntauns, just like I did. And in the end, isn't that what really matters? Tauntauns mean love, and love means Tauntauns. And if we could just change the world through Tauntaun love, I think it really would be a better place. Besides, those of us who get to play in the snow every winter have a very special playset that comes to visit whenever Mother Nature decides to provide.